We're live. Hot mic.
Hot mic, everyone. Holy
Hot
moly.
mic.
Oh my
We're
God.
live.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can get it to go on the laptop or on the desktop because that would be much better to see everyone.
I'm going to see what it's going to, which link. Oh, yeah, there we are.
All right. Yeah, it's only letting me do it on the phone, so it is what it is. But hey, looks like we have two people in here with us.
There's a little delay, but that's normal. So just be aware of that. Yeah, hot mic. We're actually live. Looks good, though.
Cool.
All right. So what do you want to talk about?
Colette's here. Yay. All right. So we'll just start. Sorry, everyone. We are having tech issues up the wazoo. What else is new? Calling on the tech angels to assist, and we are here and so thankful to be here. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Merissa, and I'm so excited. It's our first live stream with a guest with lovely Annette.
I'm
And
so excited.
what's that?
I'm so excited.
We are so excited. Aloha, Stephanie. Aloha, Merissa, Colette. Thank you for joining us. Well, here we go. If Annette, if you want to just roll with it, and we'll just play.
Okay. Well, I'm very happy to be here. I have just recently talked to Merissa the last couple of days. We connected. We had been in a similar consciousness group together for like 5 years, and I'd never talked to her specifically, and I kept feeling that it's time to talk to Merissa. And I don't know how you get it, but I always get it where it feels like it kind of presses on me. I just feel this like I can't get it off my mind. I'm like, okay, I'll do it, and I'm like, no, you got to do it right now. You got to do it right now. To kind of move on to the next thing. And a lot of Ascension is doing one thing to move on to the next thing, take the one step. It always reminds me of that scene in Indiana Jones in the temple, what is the last one? I can't remember what it is. The Last Crusade, when he has to walk and he has to take one step and then the other one lights up. And that's very similar to me, Ascension. So anyway, so we got to connect. And I noticed she was doing some stuff live. And I was like, oh, I'd love to do some stuff live. We have a little bit of a time difference. She's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. So, and so I'm in a room where I don't know how great the internet's going to be. I took my phone around. This was the strongest bars I got in this little corner of this little room. That's why I'm in this little corner of this little room, because this is the best this is going to be. So hopefully it won't be too glitchy. But it's funny, today I was listening to something and someone was talking about Mad Libs. I don't know if you ever did Mad Libs. I remember doing it in the 80s, and where you had to take three things were completely had nothing to do with one another and make a story out of it. And that to me is a lot of what Ascension is. You take these very linearly from the human consciousness, they have nothing to do with one another. Like this random shit, and you just put it all out there. And then you have to read the story back. And it's like, these things don't make any sense. But to our soul, they do make sense. And I think that's one thing we have to remember. We try to really figure out how our realities are supposed to be. I know a lot of us will come in and we either lose a lot of money along the way, or we had a lot of money to start and then we lost it, or we kind of got a nest egg. I know for a while I sold a house and had a nest egg, and I thought, wow, when that nest egg's gone, everything else will be gravy, and everything else will be perfect as soon as that nest egg's gone. And the nest egg was gone and it wasn't gravy. And that was confusing to me because I thought it would bridge. And I didn't realize how much other stuff I had to go through before I would understand how different money is here, and how different recreating a reality is here, and how different all those things are here when you're trying to align on a soul level. And I think that's what gets confusing for a lot of people. That's why a lot of the stuff I do on my channel is more, we talk about that type of stuff. We talk about the real kind of stuff, and not that Ascension is not sometimes it doesn't feel like it's really anchored in until you start seeing your outside world change, and it doesn't change the way you think it's going to change. It doesn't I always say it's not the sexy way you think it's going to look, and we try to measure it by a human reality, and we say I didn't do it right because it doesn't look like what I thought this was going to look like. I don't feel the way I thought I was going to feel, because we feel how we're naturally supposed to feel, not how we normally felt. And as humans, we felt a certain way. And now we feel a more natural way. It's our natural self, where we can feel and sense and understand, even if not in the moment, we can't understand why we have to do it. We understand later. So a lot of that's what I focus probably more on, is actually kind of bringing the stuff in and looking at, why did it turn out the way it turned out? Why did that connection not happen? I thought it was really supposed to happen, but it never materialized, So I'm gonna let you talk now, Merissa, but those are just some things I was going to throw out, and we can go for, wherever you want to go from there, but you go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And, just to catch everybody up, what we thought would be super beneficial for everyone is to get really raw and real with our own lived experience of the ascension process and the concepts of what is it like when you're bridging realities, right? And you're finding these contrasting experiences with everything used to be a certain way. You used to have this reliability on how things are, and everything's shifting. And the breadcrumbing, has been a theme that's been coming up ever so often, or you get one brick at a time, and our human consciousness wants to know, to have a safety net, just to have a concept of, well, what's after that? What's next? And sometimes it's a day-to-day process. Sometimes when we're deprogramming, a minute-to-minute process. And then we have expectations and we have attachments and we have all these and definitions. And so we wanted to start to show you what this is like, because it's challenging if you haven't experienced it. And we've been studying this. We've been in this group together. We have a lot of beautiful soul family with us on the call tonight. You all know that we can, on an intellectual level, read about something. We can hear about someone else's story, but it's different when it happens to us. Finally, we start to piece it together, like, oh, that's what she was talking about, or that's what he was talking about. And so some of the key words that we were discussing, and planning on coming together is, transitioning to higher realms. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how the fifth dimension is just the beginning. It's, we come through and we're in our heart and we're learning how to live from our heart, and it's beautiful, and there's magic. There's all kinds of amazing stuff to see, the crystalline realms. All of this is opening up to us. And that's just the entry, right? Then we have to start learning how to align ourselves from a conscious place. And then we start to see how much is not yet conscious. And it can be a lot. And yet it's one day at a time. And it's not like you think it's going to be. And also, as you obtain more awareness, let's say I'll use my own reality as an example. I figure that's the most realistic thing, is looking at, okay, I've got to get a job again. I've got to go back out into the world and get a job. And it's going to look different than how it did when you were a human in the human world, where perhaps conformity was more of a normal thing. Surrendering or sacrificing your needs, your body, pushing yourself, being type A, right? Taking substances like coffee, and stimulants in order to keep up with the momentum and the grind culture. None of that exists from the higher awareness, right? But you could be looking at, like, well, I don't want to go back into that. Why would my universe make me have to get a job? Why would I have to go back into hell? And you have to understand, well, none of that exists anymore. It's going to be completely different. So that's one example of how everything changes, because we have more access as a co-creator in our experience. And there will be many challenges and frustrations along the way, but understand that those frustrations or those perceived obstacles are just showing where we're butting heads with another layer of separation that we couldn't see before. And there are so many examples, but I'm going to mute now and we'll switch. We'll flip flop.
All right. Yeah. I think that's a good point when you say, well, why would my universe put me in that? And I know for a while I had a lot of really hard discussions with myself, because it's just us. We say our universe. Sometimes it kind of gives someone something to talk to, because you kind of, religion starts to go out the window, I never really came from a religious background, so I didn't really have too much of an issue with that. But if you come from a very religious background, that would be something else you have to kind of come to terms with, in a sense, because you are that, and you're not looking to conform to anything. And a lot of the human realities are like a cult. They are conformity. I mean, I would always say, in our human existence, we'd rather be huddled up together miserable than not be with anybody. We're ingrained in our human DNA to gather together. That's how you survived, right? So when you start getting into a journey where you're supposed to be by yourself, because you can't become your universe if you're huddled with other people, or you're asking other people what to do, or you're not sure what you should do here or what you should do there, it becomes challenging when everything starts to go and you get to this point. Why would my universe put me here? Why would my universe make me do this? Because it's what it brings up inside of us. It's not about the thing your universe is making you do, or it's not about what the situation you're in. It's about what it's bringing up. It's about the energetics of which we're starting it. Every job we have, you can bring higher consciousness to it and make it different. And you might only have to be there for 2 weeks, and then you've served what you needed to serve there, and you go into something else. I think in our human consciousness, we got into everything had to be long term. Everything had to be forever. The marriages have to be forever. Relationships are forever. Friends are forever, and all that kind of forever stuff. And here, honestly, everything's going to go. And some relationships, it's a possibility they can go with you, they can shift with you and change with you, but a majority of mine could not survive that to this date. Doesn't mean people won't come back in later in a different timeline and a different frequency. But honestly, a lot of that stuff has to go, because when we let these realities go, the people sift through with it. It's like having a sand sifter, and the people go with it, because and it was hard for me to get that for a while. It was hard for me to understand why the people had to go. And it wasn't so much they had to go, they didn't want to go into a different frequency. They didn't want to go into a different reality. So even if we have to pick up an old timeline or revisit something, and our universe is making us, getting us to revisit it, since we're different, our consciousness is different, our frequency is different, and we're not going to have the same experience we would have had going into it, years before, in a different, or 2 weeks before. I know after I talked to you the couple days ago, I went through a massive not feeling well for like 2 days. Just us connecting on the call we connected on and talking about different things. It brought up I didn't even know what it brought up, but I was it felt awful for like 2 days, just clearing. So it's amazing when you do start connecting again, just to understand the connections are there for a reason, but it's not the human reason. And we have to get over the human reason for it, because we keep judging everything from the human reason. We're going to be super disappointed when it's not that reason. I can think of jobs I had, all the things I wanted them to be, but they were never meant to be that. I wasn't going to go in there and make a huge difference. I wasn't meant to do that there. I was there because I was going to be told to go home and work from home for 3 years, and they'd never call me to work on myself. I wasn't going to be a big change there. It was just for you to have this cushy job for a few years where you could do whatever you wanted to do. So I'm going to leave that there and let you pick up and go. I'm going to mute.
That's perfect, because you assisted me with another really key point here, which is part of the deprogramming process from the human perspective is all of the conditions that we are used to sourcing from outside. So that goes for everything. Our financial abundance, the people in our reality, the possessions that we have, right? Everything outside, everything is in the human reality. That is going to make me happy. That is going to give me what I want. That is going to bring whatever. And we're learning just a total stripping away, total unconditional. Sorry, my cat wants to be a part of it, which makes it a little hard. We're
going to say my cat's laying like right here.
So a lot of when things are removed, it's because it was the only thing that made us happy. We were not happy, right? Or it gave us a sense of feeling powerful or empowered or worthy. So it's very blunt. Universe is very blunt with us. Like, if this is the thing that's making you happy, I'm going to take it away from you because it's an illusion. because you should feel the fullness of the magic and the beauty and the power that you are without any proof of it, without anything coming outside of you. It's like you are owning the frequency fully. And it's a very strong medicine. So the more we can be unconditional and start to understand that we need nothing outside of ourselves. Yes, we need food and water, right? To an extent. But if you look at all the things that we acquired in the human life in order to feel, right? And so we are learning how to feel all of creation inside of us. And then it's not conditional upon another being or a material object or any kind of a condition. And so that's one of the biggest the dangling carrot energy has been coming up for us to review, right? Of, oh, when that happens, when this, then oh yeah, then I can relax, then I can, be happy, whatever. I remember I was reflecting on this in preparing for our call, like some of my first experiences with psychedelics. And I realized that my nervous system was in a perpetual state of running and like a trauma response and, fight or flight, whatever. And that I could never relax. And I realized, I'd have these experiences with myself. At that time, it was how I could access my universe and be like, oh my God, like I cannot relax. Like I don't feel comfortable. What is this? And so I was starting to become aware of a cellular unrest, and that's part of the old paradigm energy, keep everyone's nervous system just jacked up and very uncomfortable and basically like on the run, so that we're not actually perceiving reality. We're living on this chemical cocktail of our own neural chemistry. So yeah, it's just, there's so much about this. And so when we talk about the 5D experience, it's bliss and magic and it's beautiful and it's a very vital crossover for us because we're starting to feel the love of source energy and the love of the universe and the love that we are, the love of creation. And then when we start to feel that, then comes this divine awareness of holy shit, I am responsible for everything. And it's a big task, to when we talk about being a creator being and coming into conscious creation. And it's important to know that your universe isn't going to give you more than you can handle, so you do one piece at a time. And I think the important thing is to keep the momentum going. So when it looks like your world is collapsing, like some of the words that we were sharing, like transitioning to higher realms, bridging, reality collapse, these are intense words, right? Reality collapse. Well, here's a great example: the natural disasters we've been seeing, right? So one day people have their homes, they have a normal life. The next day, a disaster happens. I hesitate to call them natural, elemental disaster, we'll say, and they've lost everything. That would be an example of a realm collapse. It's an extremely extreme example, but you can consciously work with an energy like that to bring consciousness in. You don't have to experience that fully. If you say, gosh, I'm going to use these people and what they're going through as a teaching of like, wow, I have so much compassion for them and what they're going through. How would I feel about that? What could I do to support those people? And what is that teaching me, in a remote sense, right? In kind of like a parallel learning curve kind of experience. So you can use the entire world and what you're seeing happening in the extremes as a hologram to teach yourself, oh my gosh, wow, these poor people, they've lost all of this. Like, how can I help them or how can I be of service in that kind of an energetic for people that have lost? And also, what does that show me to be more appreciative of, right? And to start to honor, like not take things for granted and not to waste our resources, and all these things that we're coming into awareness of. And yeah, we'll switch off again.
I think that's a good point to bring up, and when you brought up the point of they lost everything from a human perspective, uh, you know, um, and this, I mean, some things I'll say, I know they can be perceived as kind of cold, but I do look at it from a different perspective, where even if it was people lost, your universe is going to show you that nothing is, you can't go without, even people. And a lot of times we'll see people, whether they transition through death or they just transition and leave us, that we could go without them, because your universe is always going to show you what you can go without. And a lot of the stuff that's happening just all over, you can see these big things. And there's things that get everybody, animal abuse in children. When you see that kind of stuff, it affects everybody. Whereas a lot of other things that happen, it doesn't bother people as much. Adult on adult stuff doesn't bother people. Kids are involved, pets are involved, animals are involved. It riles people up. That's why these things happen to certain subsets, of people, or certain subsets, because these things agitate people. It upsets people more. Things that happen on a mass scale tend to affect you more than if your neighbor's house burned down. Oh yeah, that's kind of sad, but you might not care quite as much as when you see, thousands of houses burning down, or tens of thousands of houses burning down. So these things will happen on this mass scale because, unfortunately, that's what we need as the collectives to feel anything anymore. I can remember, I've told the story, I know, a zillion times, working in a place where someone next to me died in an office, and they were young, and they passed away. And like no one from the office seemed to even really acknowledge this person had passed away. And this man was at the copier maybe 2 or 3 days later, 4 or 5 days later, making copies and talking about something that had happened, some mass big event that had happened in like Florida. I think it was Florida shootings. I don't remember what it was now. It was years ago. And how it brought everyone together and how sad it was. And I remember thinking, dude, someone just died 5 feet from you, and you're not even acknowledging that. But you're concerned about people you don't know thousands of miles away. And it just really got me to look at that. That's why these things occur the way they do. And you do get to a point, especially, and Merissa, you always felt a lot really more galactic than I was, in a sense. I mean, I've gone through different galactic phases, but there are just certain people that I would look at and go, they're very much attuned to their galactic, and very much into that energy. And I know when I got into galactic, one of the biggest things it was for me was detaching. And you look at stuff from a very detached space, because a lot of the galactic races don't have that humanity. That's why we have to do the soul work and the galactic work, and I always gravitated more toward people doing the soul work, as far as like what I would consider like, teachers at the time. And I didn't really get too much into people that were doing that really into the galactic work. Like I think Susan Walters was really more into the galactic at the time when I found Lisa Transcendence Brown. I kind of gravitated more toward her, because I was more into the soul stuff than the galactic. But that does switch, and it does help us to start to detach, because I will say there's nothing that happens to any of us. I don't care what consciousness you were in. I'm not that much of a betting person, but I will tell you, you have some inkling something's going on, whether it's in your dream state, something human traumatic is about to knock on your door, one way or the other. You always would hear stories about something was about to happen, and someone kept having a dream about something happening. Because it's not deja vu, it doesn't look exactly the way it did in the dream. We might not even correspond them together. But our universe, it's always going to be kind and give us the opportunity to have some kind of inkling something might not be right. But usually it's latency. And sometimes you might dream something years before it actually occurs. And you might dream of someone leaving, whether like they just leave, or, they transition through death. They just leave your reality, or a job goes away. I'm always a big believer in nothing has happened. And like I said, it doesn't matter what consciousness you're in, you're picking up on some things unconsciously. And you kind of know when things are about to shift. But as a human, we don't take the shifts well. We want to bring everything with us through the shift. Every person we ever met, whether we like them or not, everything looks better when it's walking out the door. As soon as it's leaving, we all of a sudden we want it more. We want to be in that reality with that person, even if that reality was shit. We don't care. You see all that stuff on the internet about positive energy and bringing it positive. And I'm like, maybe it's just crappy. And you don't need, positivity is not going to fix that. Maybe you don't need to be there anymore. And it doesn't matter how positive you are. The reality, you've outgrown it. Your frequency is now telling you when you're here, you're miserable. It doesn't matter how much positive energy you're going to try to tatter on top of that. You can't put lipstick on the pig forever. It's a dying reality. You can't exist there anymore. And the hardest thing for me was leaving the reality behind. And, we always talk about astrology and how, like, for me, I was born under the sign of Taurus. And there's a lot of things about Taurus that our human will gravitate toward, right? A lot of human tendencies in that sign. And after so many years, I think people will say it goes out and gets cleansed, and you come back in and you kind of can go back with your astrological sign, but you don't have the human tendencies of it anymore. But I know when I was in my human tendency, one of the biggest things for me was Taurus, we will hold on to something forever. Okay. We don't want to let it go, but boom. And it might take us a year or a year and a half to get to letting something go. But once we let it go, dude, it is gone. We don't go back to it. We don't care what it was. It doesn't matter. We are a bull that will be pushed, but you push us enough and we will eventually be gone and we don't care anymore. And I always feel like when you go into Ascension, whatever star sign you were born under, your sun sign or even your other signs, but for me, it's normally I stronger with my sun sign. It will help you along the way of what you're going to have to do. And you were born under a certain sign for a reason. And the aspects that don't have the human taint to it, like any sign you give me, I can give you the human equivalent of something that is not great in that sign. We all have it. It's the yin and the yang of those signs. But you're going to be drawn to that. So one of the things with Taurus, I was able to stick with realities a long time and give a lot of opportunities for people. And in Ascension, we do that. We give a lot of opportunities. But there will come a point when you're like, I've given enough here. And now something that used to be aligned, which I'm going to kick it over to you now, Merissa. I'm going to kind of give you one if you want to go with this one. Things that were aligned. We have this thing that soul aligned reality is supposed to last forever. They don't. Even if it was so aligned in that minute, it was aligned to something, but now you have to move on to something else. And for me, the reality would get squished and uncomfortable. Where I used to feel welcomed, I didn't feel that anymore because it was time to go. It's not a personal thing. It's time to move out of that reality. It's time to go be somewhere else. And I never liked that. I still would have someone that revert back to those human things of holding on to it. Like I said, we'll hold on until we'll just grab on forever. So I'm going to kick it up back to you. I'm going to mute and let you go with that for a while.
Yeah, it's a really good point is to know, we do evolutionary astrology on this channel. And it can be very supportive to know your astrology, because if you're a fixed sign, then you have more of a fixative, or you fixate. And it's really important to know that as humans, that's part of what human nature is to attach, right? And to be attached to a reality. And then when it starts to shift, you may take it personal, the ego consciousness may take it personal, or then we try to cling, and it brings in a lot of the Buddhist concepts, like don't cling, it causes suffering, and how to balance out like our desires. And so there's so many layers to look at everything. So when we're starting to feel some shift and the reality is essentially closing out, it's helpful to look back, okay, what are the human programs or the conditions or the social imprints of what my life is supposed to look like, right? Because they have everything perfectly. They've got everyone in boxes, right? Okay, you're this gender, you fulfill this role. By this age, you should have, 2.5 children, the white picket fence, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's like so factory, right? It's like everyone's a product coming out on the assembly line. And so as you start to come into this quantum lifestyle where things have a purpose, they serve a purpose. It's an energetic alchemy that's happening with you and other people, other souls, other things that you're drawn to, activities or places to live on the planet. Like that's one thing that's really tough for us as humans is surrendering where we're clinging. And you'll feel that. If something feels like it's causing suffering, like you don't want to let it go, well, why not? Because we're more comfortable in the human mindset. We're more comfortable with what we know than the fear of the unknown. Well, why is that? Well, let's bring in, neuroscience with that. Is that when you bring in new things into your reality, it actually triggers your nervous system. It's going all the way back into the reptilian limbic parts of our brain. You think about like hunter-gatherer times when the fight or flight kicks on. So something new happening, coming into your experience, you've got to understand what's happening with your neurochemistry so that you can overcome it. And that's why we share all the yogic technology on this channel, even breath work, can bring you back, into a stasis. Because when something new comes, your entire mammal body is going to perceive it as a threat. And then all these hormones kick on, and then all these stories and all of this stuff starts coming out of the subconscious, right? And all this fear and all this energy is projected. And that's us getting stuck in our head and all these things. So it's important to pull back and say, wait a minute, what's happening here? What's coming up in me? What is here right now? What is present right now? What emotional guests are visiting with me right now? And you'll find it's always similar themes. Like, I don't think I'm capable of doing this. Doing something new, whatever that new thing is that I'm being pushed into, scares the shit out of me. And I feel safer here, even though it's actually not of integrity to stay here, or it's actually imbalanced, right? So we're always getting pushed. And I love that expression. It's a wonderful saying, like, the universe will push and pull us because we are stars. We're not blobs, right? So you will get pushed and pulled around, and that's actually what plasma does. It's always moving, always forming, ever creating. So it's like constant cycles of death and rebirth, death and rebirth. And when we say death, we mean alchemy, we mean transformation, because nothing dies, it just transmutes into another form, right? And so if you can start to look at yourself and your experience as energy and as an energetic being, and that's one of the teachings we share on this channel, is the wave form. That yes, we look like we're solid and everything looks like it's solid, because that's how our senses are set up to perceive. But everything's a waveform, everything is in flux. And if you start to understand that you are a being coming, you are constantly becoming, you are constantly shifting and morphing and evolving, and that the light is going to consistently activate you and trigger the fuck out of you to see more. Once we start to understand the rodeo and the roller coaster, it makes it not scary anymore. It's not like, oh, yay, I love discomfort. No, no one loves discomfort. But you start to see the science of the energies of what's happening, which is expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. And that's the ascension of consciousness process, right? So, um, let's see if there's anything else on that. No, I don't have anything else. We'll keep going. But I also want to say, if you guys have questions or topics that you want us to specifically address, that's very helpful for everyone. If you want to share or just throw something into the mix here in the chat, this will support everyone and also those who come after the live. So, and then I will be quiet and pass it over to you, Annette.
There's something you said, and I was going to say something. I think for me, I don't know if it's gotten easier to let realities go. I think there's a quiet acceptance that starts to come with it, where you just start to understand that most of mine last 2.5 to a little under 3 years, usually about 2 years, 10 months. And that's how long people call it your template building. You see it written a lot of different ways, people speak about it differently, but it takes a while to rewrite your DNA to get your body consciousness up, to get to the next reality. It's all like, I explained it today, like, as we're humans, we don't tick up fast enough. We're still ticking up. You're always going to be a little more conscious than you were in the moment before. But as humans, we tick up so slowly because we're so inhibited by our body frequency that it's almost like you get a little more leg room on the plane, but you're still going to the same direction. You know what I mean? Like, you might talk to somebody different because you moved a seat to get more leg room, but you're still flying in the same way. You're still going to the same place. Nothing really changes. That's why we get into so many patterns. It takes us decades to break out of a pattern because we stay the same. And I don't care what astrological sign you can be just be a Gemini, which to me were the most woo people I've ever met. And they can say they love change. And I don't want to pick on Geminis, but that was just the one sign, because I was very staunch, fixed sign. And I still feel that in my ascension, even though, like I said, a lot of the other aspects of me, the other aspects have kind of fallen away with my Taurian energy, but there are some that have perseverance, which has helped me. There's, like it says, there's the yin and yang of every sign. You say you like change, but until your whole human life goes down the tubes, That's not the kind of change a human is got. I don't care where you were born, what sign you were born under. That's going to cause, you might like some fun little change about, oh, I liked it, whatever. That is big change. And that's what starts to happen. Your money goes. Your money can't go from dimension to dimension with you. You shift your dimension, your source of money will go. I started to understand that this money can't come with me because the money I made over here wasn't pure. Even if I thought it was maybe purer than what I made before, but it still wasn't 100%. Are there, how we make money changes, where we live changes, people we live with change. It doesn't, it's going back to what I said in the beginning and the stuff you've touched on. It's not what you think. It's like a Mad Libs where you throw everything together and the story doesn't make any sense from a human perspective, that you're going to be living with that person or doing work with this person or not really working at all. It's hard to explain to people when your money is all gone and you are really breaking through programming about there's always going to be another way. But you can't go back and get a linear job. Now, how is that explainable to someone who's not in the middle of that journey? Change is one thing, but the complete demolishment of your human existence, that's something else. So it's not an easy transition. And I always say, if anyone's painting it as that, they haven't been through that part yet. It's not that they're intentionally lying, they just haven't been through it. That they haven't gotten to that part yet, or they're on the other side of it and they don't really remember when they were in it, because they're so far removed from it. But you look back and look at the things that meant so much at the time, and you don't even remember them anymore. You can't remember what you used to own or what you used to have, or because it's so many realities ago and it doesn't really matter anymore. None of that stuff matters. None of that stuff really mattered. We thought it mattered. We thought we needed it. We thought we had to have that thing, but none of that stuff mattered. But what it gets to when it starts to, and it gets where everything goes, and others might have a different, I do feel like there's going to be people coming in that, I know money is a big one for a lot of us when we go through different parts of the journey. There will be people that come in that don't have that because they have a lot of money to bring in, but they'll start to funnel that. They'll start to understand to funnel that through different to consciousness and away from the human realities, and the money will start flowing differently. But when you're in the middle of rebuilding or watching things go and you don't know why it wasn't aligned, you don't understand why, what was not aligned about that, why was that tainted? And it takes us a while to understand that any ounce of human consciousness that created it is going to taint it. And we have to go through so many years of our ascension process. And I kind of break out my awakening and ascension is different, but so many years of our ascension to even come to a level of purity. And we might not be able to hold that all the time. But sometimes you look back, even telepathy, when we all got into telepathy, there's manipulation in that. We're trying to energetically move things around on the chessboard. We're trying to energetically do something. We want someone to do something. That's what that is. That's why people get into it. People can say whatever about getting into telepathy. Yes, it opens up the fourth dimension. Sure, it does. And that's the carrot that dangles to get you in. Our soul's going to kind of dangle carrots too, but it's not for the reason we think. We try to go into the fourth dimension and take all this metaphysical stuff. I'm going to take my pendulum and I'm going to take my tarot cards and I'm going to learn about energy and telepathy. And I'm going to ram that stuff back into my human reality and try to make that shit work in a different way because it didn't work before. So now I'm going to bring all this stuff in and try to make it work. And our soul makes us believe we can do that for a while. But what it's doing is all that stuff raises our consciousness to pull us out. And it starts collapsing more. So we just double down on the stuff over here and we get more into the energy work and more into that stuff because we're like, this is going to fix it. I'm going to double down on this metaphysical stuff. But it's just pulling us out. But that's what it was supposed to do. But those are kind of the tricks that our soul will play in a sense. You want a soulmate? Oh, listen to this, soulmate activation for 5 years in a row. And then you realize I don't really need one anymore. That was the end of it, And you're like, well, never mind. Now I've gotten to the point I don't need it, So to me, a lot of that is the funny part you get to, all the stuff we said. But when you're really going through it, it's not a pretty thing in a sense. And it's just not an easy thing. And there's so many different realities we'll transition through that, like I said, they used to feel aligned and they don't, because we outgrow things so much faster. We get our parachute on and we jump off the plane. We don't want extra leg room anymore. We just want off. And we're going a different direction. We're catching something and we're going somewhere else. And I feel like that sometimes doesn't it doesn't come through, because that doesn't sell a lot of tickets, But when it's your time, it's your time. And if it's not your time, nothing's going to make people want to go with you on this journey. Because if human realities work for people, they're not leaving them. So I'm going to kick it back to you, Merissa, and you go.
I would love for our audience for you to break down human so that they understand that, this is not an attack on people, that we are showing that we are multifaceted and that we are multidimensional, and that there are aspects of us that have not as much access. And therefore, when there's a perceived separation, then we bring in these behaviors that are not of integrity, right? Like manipulation and all this, so much that we see, right? Domination, the power dynamics that are not honoring another's free will, all these things. So I would love for your beautiful phrasing to just explain, so the audience can expand this concept of what are we talking about when we say the human,
All right. How I always felt is our human consciousness is our ego. People call it our ego. People call it sometimes the dark night of the soul, but that doesn't make a lot of sense, because our soul's not dark. We all know that. But you'll see it in a lot of different ways. But we all go through our human realities. We create them with our human consciousness. That's what we have at the time. We haven't unlocked anything else. 90% of our DNA is, they say, it's junk DNA. And that's just because human scientists don't know what it's for. And it's not related to our human blueprint, right? So they say it's junk, it doesn't matter. But now even you're seeing science come back now and say, well, we're not sure if it matters. We think it can be programmed, but we're not sure what it's programmed with. And you're even starting to see a lot of that type of, stuff come back in. So as we transition through our awakening really shakes our human consciousness, because our whole life starts to collapse. You're either going to have like your whole life collapse, or everything you thought you wanted and you get it and you don't want it. You see it both ways. For me, I almost got it, but then it all fell apart, and that pushed me into my awakening. And I spun my wheels there for years, and then started getting more into my ascension, where for me, ascension was me consciously doing it. I wasn't just being battered around anymore in the misery of an awakening. But our human consciousness will create. And once our human consciousness will create a reality, it's built on what is in it for me. That's all our human cares about. And there's flips to that, where you're going to say, oh no, I always want to do for other people. Well, you're trying to do for other people so you feel better about yourself. It's still not pure. It's still about you, and we say that, and we mean, in a sense, we all do that, so it's not saying, oh, we all did it. We all started there. That's the only place we start. It's like, I did a thing today about secrets and keeping secrets. It's like, well, our human's going to lie. Our human always lies. It lies to ourselves. It lies to other people. That's all it knows to do. It's self-preservation. I got my back, and that's the only back I got. I don't care who anybody else is. It doesn't matter. But in Ascension, yes, we do a lot of work on ourselves. And yes, we pull away from a lot of people. But we start to transcend that human programming, where it's all about me. None of everything else matters. Do we care more? Do we care? Do we even know our neighbors anymore? And that's just a little thing to think. Do we even care about people in our community? Do we even know anybody? Does it matter to us what's happening? I read a book years ago, and I think it was a Gene Key book. And one of the things that I think Rudd was the last name of the person who wrote it. And one of the things he said in this Gene Key book was, in our human realities, the tornado is going to hit your house one year. You just don't know when the tornado is going to hit your house, and when it hits somebody else's house. And in a sense, that's anything. That's anything human trauma happening, right, to somebody. That tornado just hit their house, whatever it is. They got divorced. Their kids went to college and they didn't know what to do with themselves, whatever it was for them. So something traumatic happened and the tornado hit the house. But there's a part of us that was like, least it wasn't us. We're going to live our life for another year. And that's why everything we create has to go, because it's all created from that me stuff. Even like I said, we get into telepathy. Yeah, I used it, but I'm using it to try to get someone to do something. Am I ashamed to say that? No, because that's why everybody uses it when we get into it. We're trying to play around. I'm going to see if I can get so-and-so to call me. I'm going to see if I can get so-and-so to hire me. I would do it because I knew we tap into that energetic power, and we know we can do certain things. But we also know after a while, you only go so far with that. And then you can't go any farther until you have the purity to go farther with it. You have the fail safe kind of built in. That's why you see a lot of people stop at certain points in fourth dimension, because going farther, or everything's very generic. Even I did a thing about body language once. It was all very generic. You look at someone and go, oh, that person likes this person, or that person's nervous. Well, it's generic because that's all they can pick up on. We're not expanding past that. So when your reality starts to go and your money starts to go, all these things we created with the human consciousness, and even when you start rebuilding back, and that's why for a while you don't have anything to build back with, because we don't know what it means to bring in other aspects, whether it be you. And Marissa, I'm going to kick it back over to you in a minute to talk about the different aspects. We talked about your Christ aspect, your God frequency. If you want to go to Archangel Michael aspects, your galactic aspects, you have so many different higher aspects of yourself that build realities that are not based on just you. And you don't look at yourself as the center of your universe, even though you are the center of your universe. You also look at how can you affect other people? What can you build for other people? Marissa and I aren't on here to help each other. We both know what we're talking about in a sense, and there's always more we learn, but we do it to help other people because someone was there to help us. And there was someone we listened to, and someone when we needed just to get through another day, someone was there. It doesn't mean we go back and help out that exact person. And that's when we talk more about quantum and how things work. You go to someone who needs it at that moment. It's almost like you pay it forward in a sense. Someone helped you. I really don't like the word help, but someone assisted you, and now you're going to assist somebody else. Our human consciousness will fade because we transcend it. We work through it. We realize it's all based on human beliefs, human programming of how we value ourselves. And that's the biggest thing about the higher dimensions is when you start going there, the belief systems aren't the same. And we try to measure back to that. And that's why we feel like it's not working. But that's not our fault because we don't have anything else to measure it to. That's what we were taught successful was. So if this is not successful, and if a human consciousness is going to look at it, they're going to look at a lot of stuff I have done and said, that girl, that is a mess. What you got going on there, but that's a mess over here. Okay. Because this is not conforming with anything. But, we don't conform, because when you start conforming again, then you can, it's kind of like once you go to a certain point, you can't go back anymore. You can't board a ship it's sunk. Your human realities have sunk. You can't even go back and try to take an ember of a ship and try to rebuild it. It's gone. And knowing you get to a certain point, I know I got to a certain point and I was like, well, hell, what's the matter now? It's all gone. What's the matter now? So hopefully that expands a bit, and I'm going to kick it back to you. And we are open for questions, just to reiterate that, or a different topic. I don't know if did you know, Merissa, does this have a time limit? I know on Instagram, after an hour, you get abruptly kicked off, as Colette and I found out when we were on once.
As far as I know, no. As far as I know, right. I'm just writing down because you said so much that is so inspiring. So thank you so much. And one of the pieces is the deprogramming. We talk about deprogramming on this channel because you start to understand that our consciousness and everything that we were, Merissa, this is a social construct. It's not my creation. My entire personality and identity, definitions of reality have all essentially been, so we're going to go into like mindfuck acid trip now, everybody, okay? Everything about us has been in response to an environment out there. And depending on your upbringing, of a threatening one, not warm and fluffy and just so magical and divine. That's why so many of us love 5D. When we finally get to 5D, it's like, oh my God, I can just feel good. I can just feel love and and beauty. And that's reality. Absolutely, right? But how do we hold it? How do we recreate that, right? So there's the growing up that happens. There's the deprogramming that happens where we realize that the majority of our personality and individuation, when Annette talks about purity, it was essentially an auto response to survival and self-preservation, right? And so you have to continually look at all these pieces. It's like the biggest puzzle ever, this beautiful multidimensional puzzle of your beingness. And so when things start to shift, you can look at, well, what was the point of creation of this creation? Oh, well, this happened because at that point I needed help and I didn't believe I could do it. Whatever, you want to look at all the pieces. Okay, well, what's different now? Well, I've learned more. I have more confidence. I've discovered more skills about myself. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, and then I actually feel like moving here and I know someone here and we're going to get into this industry together. So there's this breadcrumb component. So you want to look at, do a mind map if that helps you of what's going on here. What are the patterns? What are my patterns? You want to be really honest with yourself. And this is part of that deprogramming because when we talk about programming and the subconscious, there are, like, I always see it as like petals of a flower that are like really like the heart chakra and the root chakra, the closest petals are the most intricate and the innermost core programming, right? The limbic imprinting that was happening in early childhood and then early adolescence, right? So these themes will come up again and again and again. So victim consciousness, not good enough, not worthy, right? And then depending on any kind of abuse that you went through, right? So it comes back to with the deprogramming, ancestral clearing again. Oh shit, there's that belief system. I'm putting this pressure on myself that why am I not, married and with a 401k and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not my reality. It's been put all around me in the media. Maybe my parents do it, whatever, right? Everyone looks at you like you're crazy because that's not what you do. So I was going to say, oh, Annette, fellow super mess over here as well. Fellow nonconformist super mess. Okay. Quantum reality. Yay. Um, so, you always want to come back to deprogramming and looking at all the different pieces as best as you can. And now we want to talk about aspects you want to see. What aspect of me is responding to this? And we talk about this a lot on the channel is what emotions are present, what stories are attached to those emotions, and you may feel where it is in your body. You may see memories of, oh yeah, that happened. And then ever since then, I believed this about this thing. So you want to see what aspect is this? Is this 5-year-old wounded me? Right? Um, is this my wounded feminine? Is this my wounded masculine? Like you want to ask, explore. And even if you don't have words, so I'll share the last few days also, after speaking with Annette, we did some beautiful reflecting together on our journey and how it's really hard as hell sometimes because you just feel like you're getting put through the ringer and you feel like, why is all this happening to me? Like I'm not a bad person, my intentions are good. Like what is this, right? And you just realize, well, I created this unconsciously because there was still an aspect of me that is afraid of change or is fearful of being able, right? That capability, like, am I able to do this? And so that's one of the programs I call the I can'ts. I can't. I remember having that since I was like 5 years old. Oh, I can't, I can't do it for me. I can't, pity me, help me, take care of me, pick me up. I can't. So you see how some of these are like so rooted in and then they surface up again. And you're like, oh, thank you for showing me that aspect again, right? So sometimes you don't have the words. So the last few days, after meeting with Colette or with Annette, sorry, we have Annette, we have Colette, sorry. Um, Meeting with Annette and speaking, then I went into a really deep root chakra clearing. And I could tell because then I can't get into my God consciousness. It almost feels like I'm hitting a top and I'm like, hmm. And it's because I'll be in the higher God consciousness and then you get batted down into an even deeper root. So if you imagine a ping pong of, okay, you got this really high quality of energy and awareness and divinity and all this expansion, then it's going to tunnel down and it's going to kerplunk you down into even deeper aspects of the root. And now my universe shows me this symbol to let me know, like, hey, you're going to do some serious clearing right now. And it's an image of the Hadron Collider. If any of y'all are familiar with HARP and CERN and their shenanigans with technology and dark matter and quantum mechanics, well, guess what? That's the human slave matrix ego 3D control system, not of the light way of playing with quantum energy by creating machines to do it for them. Well, guess what? That's your power. That's actually the power you have as a unified state with, combining your mind and your heart together with your universe to create and collapse whole realities. So the Hadron Collider is doing that. So I was shown an image of the Hadron Collider and it kind of looks like a spider web made of metal, right? And I was like, oh shit, okay, they're showing me this. That means we're going to be in some massive quantum processes right now. And that really assists me because in that time and space, I'm not able to linearly say what is happening inside of me because I'm getting put down into my programming again. When you're in your programming, it feels like maybe these are some ways it could come through just to share so that you understand what's happening and you don't give your power over to it and you're not afraid anymore. You understand the science of the mechanics. It feels like you're in the dark. It feels like your back's up against the wall. You can't see anything, right? You don't even have words. You may just have feelings in the body, these bodily responses of discomfort or tension, or I feel like I'm choking or I can't breathe or whatever. So you cannot define with the mind what is going on. And you'll notice your mind wants to try to reach what's happening to me. Let me define it. Let me say what this is to try to grasp and to try to have some comfort in the situation as to what's happening, because that's how our brains are made. That's how we're hardwired in the human linear functioning. And this is a non-linear process. So it definitely kicks you into, kind of perhaps some forms of panic until you become a few rounds of this, you start to understand what's happening. You're like, okay, all right, I'm just going to chill here, right? So then you wait for the information and you expand. Okay, Colette says she just went through this. Yeah, love, you're doing amazing. These are intense as fuck. And this is part of the shamanic. This is where in this channel we do shamanic kind of stuff that you bring your other aspects in. So when you're in the process of deprogramming some aspects and you don't yet know who they are, what parts of you this is yet, in order to really, completely dissolve it. You can't define it yet. That's when you bring your power in. That's when you bring in your other aspects that you can consciously say, please come help me. And I can't tell you how many times in my awakening journey, I've been on my knees, crying my eyes out. And I asked Mother Mary to come. She's always been one of my biggest, working with the Divine Mother and the Divine Feminine. I call on Sophia, Divine Cosmic Mother Sophia, Heavenly Father, Cosmic Mother, Archangel Michael, right? It depends on what brings you soothing and comfort in that moment, but that will assist you to get through the process, to get through the panic or anything that's happening in the nervous system, because the emotional and the cortisol, all that shit is very powerful neurochemistry, and it's actually not our natural state, right? But boy, does it spin us for a loop. You cannot even think clearly in that state of panic. And that's okay. It will pass. It will pass. It's like an ayahuasca journey. These frequencies, we don't even have to take, any of these anymore. They're great. Plant medicine can be very supportive. I'm always an advocate for it if you require that kind of assistance. But the energies are so fucking intense that your deprogramming will feel like an acid trip or an ayahuasca journey, right? So yeah, I just when Annette was speaking, I was like, okay, I want to share a little bit more about the deprogramming, to just stop. What's going on? What am I seeing? What can I define right now? And then you want to rationalize with yourself. So I call these moments, okay, I'm on the edge of the cliff. I'm on the edge of the cliff right now. I'm flipping the fuck out. I'm on the edge of the cliff, it feels like. And I'll stop and I'll touch my body. I'll touch my chest and I'll be like, all right, I'm here. I'm here. I'm safe right now. The walls aren't caving in. It might feel like it inside of myself, but my roof is standing. I'm safe. So then I'll start working with the inner child and my root chakra. I'm safe. I'm safe. All is well. I am secure. I am love. I am loved. And I'll just self-soothe. And then you start to calm the nervous system down. So it depends. Sometimes all you can do is breathe through it. Sometimes you can speak to yourself. Sometimes you can call the other aspects, depending on where you are. You don't know where you're going to go. You could go into nonverbal, you could be in utero. So it's important to understand that in this deprogramming process, we are time traveling through our DNA, through our consciousness, through our Akash. And you may not be able to see and define all of it. You have to just surrender and relax the body. Let the information come forth, and it will. And then you will be able to define, as you're supposed to, and be able to dissolve. Oh, wow, I was just afraid. Oh, I just forgot, whatever, right? Hopefully this will help. It's very challenging to try to put this in a package for you all, but you will get through this. You are made for this. So you have to remember, I'm capable. I got this. And that's why we're here to provide these tools, because this is a big year, right, for all of this. And I know we're at an hour, and I will let Annette go, and then we'll figure out how much, however long you want to go, Annette.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That was very helpful. Because I know a lot of times when I'm in it, you get so wrapped up in it, you don't even know you're in it. You think you're out of it, and you're like, no, no, I'm pretty far in this still, and I don't. I thought I was done with that. And it's just we're deeper into it. Now it's another layer of it. Now we're going deeper in, because a lot of times when I was going through some of my roughest stuff, it was almost like I'd get a reprieve for maybe a week, a month. Sometimes it was a week, sometimes a few days, and I'm back in it again. And that was kind of sometimes confusing to me, because I'm like, okay, phew, I made it through. All right. Especially back in 2020, 21, 22. Those were very heavy financial clearing years for me. Where you just hold on for one more day, and then it got a little easier. Then you're like, okay, now I'm through it, and then you get hit again. So it reminds me of that. There was the words from Rocky Balboa was, it doesn't matter how many times you get hit, it's how many times you can get hit and get back up. In the words of Rocky Balboa, it's like it doesn't matter. And I read it was funny, because sometimes you read stuff from all over the place, and you would not think I'm going to get this really nugget of consciousness in this book. But I remember I read the book by the drummer from Motley Crue, Tommy Lee, and it was called Tommyland, I think. And it was a part of the book, and he said, if you only can see one way out, then you're not looking hard enough. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty smart, Tommy. You're damn right. If you can only see one outcome, you're not looking hard enough. You're not thinking about it, and not even thinking, you're not feeling it, because there's not just one. There's a billion. And it's how many can you figure out, and how many other options are there? Because if you only see one, you're not seeing enough. So there's consciousness in everything. There's consciousness everywhere we look. We just didn't see it before. Our human reality was just as dominated by energy as ours is now. We just couldn't see it. You couldn't tune into it. It doesn't mean it was never there. It doesn't mean I hadn't coded in all this stuff about my world, and I could see realities closing out way before they did if I could see the signs. But I didn't have the awareness and the consciousness, and the hadn't cleared enough of my body, the human consciousness, to see it. But it was always there. You can go back and look at any reality, hindsight, even your human consciousness realities, and say, yeah, I can see the signs on that one. I could see that. That's why we see things so forward now. You always get to a point with your ascension process, you'll see things so many years ahead. You'll know when things are closing down. You can feel it energetically, years before they do, months before they do. It depends on where you are with it, and if you're willing to see it. Our human doesn't want to see anything. It feels like it does. It thinks it does, but it doesn't really want to. Just like we said, it doesn't want to go through any big shifts. It doesn't really want that. That's not what it wants. It's not what our human wants, to just stay huddled up. I don't care how miserable it is. At least we're all miserable together. And that's just how that consciousness works. It's not meant for any, it's not meant for any big, it's not going to meant for any big play. It's not what it's programmed to do. So for me, the only way sometimes you can get through is just to feel like, well, my universe isn't going to let me just completely just fall apart here. Like it's not going to happen like that. And sometimes I'll be honest, sometimes I didn't even care if I did. I was like, I don't care. If this is it, then maybe it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow. And I mean, you don't want to get dark about it, but sometimes you feel that way. Like, it doesn't even matter if this is it, whatever. Because this journey is not what I signed up for. Because who would sign up for that? who would sign up for everything we knew to be completely reworked? I don't want to say destroyed, because it's really wasn't made to last. I mean, it's not built on anything. We wonder why our human realities don't last. They're not built on anything. They're built on sand. There's nothing there. We don't have anything to build anything on. You know, we don't we don't have anything. We don't know how to build anything because we're too selfish with building it. And we can look back at, like I said, you can look back at everything in your human consciousness. It's all selfishly motivated. The one thing I'll give that's usually when we bring kids in and we have children and we're around children, we tend to start transcending some of that. And that's why the kids come in. Like I said, it's those are the reasons we bring them in. So they interact, they bring our playfulness out. They bring out that stuff in us. You know, but a lot of stuff we do as humans, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And we were joking. I just like, yeah, this is a mess. Looks like a mess from our human consciousness. But you look at someone's human life and go, that shit looks like a mess to me. You're in stuff you hate. You're with people you don't like. You're spending money to buy stuff you don't need, to impress people you don't like. Who cares? It doesn't make any sense. And you're stressed out about everything. Where after a while, you really don't. It's weird because you went from being a human to stressing out about everything. But when you get to a certain part of your process, when you start getting on the other side of a lot of this heavier stuff Merissa and I have talked about tonight, you don't really worry about stuff anymore. You just have this thing where you're like, yeah, it's going to work out. It doesn't matter. Because you've gone through so much stuff that had worked out. It might not have worked out the way you thought it was going to. And I'll guarantee it's not going to work out the way you thought it was going to. It's not going to work out the way you think it's going to happen. But I will guarantee you it will work out. And you go through enough of that. It almost equates back to when, everyone has a first love and that ends and everyone's like, I'm never going to feel that way again. And it's real dramatic and real human consciousness dramatic. But then you fall in love again and you're like, oh, okay, well, it's fine then. It's kind of the same way, but on a flip with Ascension. You get through so many of them and you realize, oh, it's going to work out. It might not work out the way I thought it was. It might not work out the way my human wants it to. It might not work out with the people I thought would be there, but it's going to work out. And there's a comfort in knowing in that, and there's no more worrying. Even when we're in the stressful times, the worrying goes. And I don't know if Merissa, I know I'm gonna have to get off soon. I want to be respectful of other people in the house, and I know everyone's gonna start to go to bed soon. So I'm gonna let you kind of close out, and I'll probably be popping off, and I'm gonna listen to your closeout, and then I'm gonna have to pop off. But I really have enjoyed talking to you tonight, and I really hope we get to do it again. So anyway, and thank everyone for joining us because it was a lot of fun to see everyone in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annette. This has been amazing. Anyone here want to check out her incredible work as a way shower as well as Ascension Guide? Just so many gifts that she offers. Art of Intuition, right? artofintuition.com. So I think it's good to end on a high note because I can feel people, whether it's here or in the future, being like, and maybe it's good to feel that. Maybe it's good to be like, oh, fuck. What are my priorities? What are my values? What scares me? And then I say, welcome to being alive. Welcome to starting to understand what it means to be alive. And it's nothing like what we've had before because your sensitivities open, your gifts open, your inspiration opens. And like Annette said, it's not necessarily going to look like how you wanted it to be, but it's going to be better than anything you could have come up with, and even more perfect and even less stressful and less expensive. Like there's all these pieces, when we're trying to control and make it just so, and it's all so what I talked about earlier is like being conditional. The more unconditional you can be and coming into that space of I'm one with my universe and my universe loves me. The universe is wise, loving, and abundant and beautiful. And this is God energy, creative life force energy flowing through me, trying to take me on a journey that's beautiful. And the less resistance I can have. So the more trauma that you have had and people fucked you over and all this stuff, it's going to come up. Your trust issues are going to come up. But guess what? That's why. So you don't have to have that shit anymore. So you can clarify yourself, right? So your root chakra, I call it getting rattled around, like, and it's like, oh my God, I've been through it, been through the ringer, right? but it's so that we start to completely recalibrate, crystallize, refresh. That's the crystalline consciousness, is the purification of our associations with reality and what to expect. Expect blessings, expect magic and goodness, and don't judge how it looks. Don't even judge at first, maybe what it's bringing up in you, right? So we talk about having a trigger party. Annette said something like, we're all miserable together, or something funny like that. And it's like, hey, celebrate that you're getting triggered, because it means that you're becoming more alive. And the aspects that held you back are losing control. And that's another thing, losing control. So universe loves you. Everything that happens is for you. These are upgrades to go beyond. And if you can start to build that trust, and I always say, look back, look throughout your life of all the crazy shit, the crisis, all these things you've been through that were insane, and how the universe always had your back. You were always okay. We're still here, right? We're here together right now, for everyone in the future too, on the replay. So you start to build an inventory of trust, faith, and trust, right? And so it's for you, it's upgrades, it's coming for what you really came here to be and do and share, right? And if you stayed small, you couldn't access it, right? Another note is, you are capable. Remember this. I am capable. I am capable of this. I am becoming more free, right? I'm free, and I'm becoming even more free of all the stuff that weighed you down, all that heaviness, and that's happening in the body too. And Annette was talking about, these processes, when we get across, when we cross the threshold, we cross the bridges, we get to the other side. Well, guess what? If we want to summarize this entire process, it's clearing density from the body. That's what we're doing. We're doing ancestral clearing, and we're clearing density and distortion from our physical body and our kosh and our DNA. So we are doing collective grid work for the entire of creation, forward and back, through our own clarification process. And if you just keep focused and you just keep going for it, and you understand that this is for you, the more you cannot get stuck in the victim, why me, da da da. Feel that. Let that come out. It's getting squeezed out for a reason, but don't get stuck there. Don't get stuck. Keep surfing, right? And the other thing that Lisa teaches us, you can shift everything from inside. And the Vedic rishis teach this. Every mystery school, every sage, they all teach this. It's all a hologram. Don't give your power over to the hologram. Work with it. Learn from it. Ask, see what it's showing you. It's reflecting back to you. It's a mirror verse. In this channel, we talk about the concepts of the mirror verse. Well, this year and everything going forward, it's going to be mirrored back, and it is confronting. But then it isn't, because you're like, wow, I'm so fortunate to see. And like I say, when you see, you are free, right? So you can shift everything that you see out there from inside. You're about to have a really intense conversation with someone. You start going in your head how it's going to happen, or how they're going to respond based on before. Blah, blah. Guess what? None of that exists, actually, unless you recreate it. So you come inside and you say, I'm asking for the highest, most beautiful outcome. I'm coming into my peace. I'm going to speak from my heart. No matter what happens, I'm going to speak from my heart in this. You shifted the situation. And it's not about controlling the situation or controlling. It's about shifting. And if you feel at peace, you're not really going to give a fuck what happens anyway, because you took your power back. So you see how small these are, micro efforts, but they're huge because they are the ripple effect, through the quantum substratum. We live in an ocean, guys. We live in an energetic ocean, So resistance is futile, and it creates hell. So it's okay when you have the panic and the victim stuff come up. It's going to come up until you're done with it. It's shaking it out of your root based on the trauma you experience, whatever you have in your lineage as well. So it's okay to have that, why is this happening to me, the victim, for a minute. And then you catch it. You see, oh, I went victim, right? And then you come back into, I'm not going to resist. And that's the Zen Buddha, on Quaaludes, right? Approach that I'm a fan of. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, everyone. And I'm very grateful to Annette for the opportunity to go very deep and to have multiples of us, sharing. And we'll do more of these. Annette and I have talked about doing this every week, so we'll find a time and a day. And so I just want to thank everyone who's here and just say, you got this, and you're fucking amazing. And we're all soul family. That's why we're here together.
I will add real quick before I pop off that I've loved being here. It's been so much fun, but there is another side. You get to the other side. You might just get to the other side for a while, and then you got something else to go through, and then you get to the other side of that. But there is always another side. Okay. So no matter how deep it is and how bad it feels, and I'm gonna use the word bad, I don't like it, but we'll use it here. We're gonna allow it. We'll allow it here at the end. There is always another. You always get to the other side of it. And then you look back and go, I'm really glad I got through that. And then you realize that the next one doesn't feel as big anymore because you already got through it. You're like, oh, I already got through that. It doesn't matter. And once everything starts collapsing, you said the word, and I think I'm really glad you said it. It's freedom.
Freedom.
But it's freedom, not how human consciousness knows freedom. It's soul. It's how your soul knows freedom. And it is the most amazing feeling to not care about any of that shit anymore. All the stuff we cared about is so stupid. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna have to pop, but it was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Much love. We'll see you soon. Take care.